Drone delivery?
Hello, Bobby. We're straight.
Am I late? How come you're already here?
We've got to be somewhere.
We're fashionably early. We're always
all
early.
right. Okay.
No,
well, sorry for missing you last week, gentlemen.
Need better sites.
We are live, by the way. We are online, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, good. Well, let's do the introduction. I just hit going live as you came aboard there, Bobby. So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. We are honoured to have Bobby Healy with us from Manor in Ireland, a drone delivery company, and I'm rather hoping that I see you use Chat GPT or do a little bit of programming of where your stuff went. I hope that's in the background of you there, but Bobby Healer. What am I? I've not even been drinking.
The Irish version or the Welsh Irish.
Oh, there you go. Game designer, then
game writer, not designer. When I'm so old, there was no design in games. You just started writing them.
Oh yes, fair enough. I know what you mean. And then the big thing you had was car trawler. I think that was your big thing over there. And then you met someone in a chip shop, I believe, and that's turned into or chipper. Am I supposed to say chipper, aren't I, to Ireland?
Chipper. Yeah, chipper.
Yeah. I think that's quite an interesting creation story that speaks to delivery drones and the efficacy of them, or may. Bruce will disagree with you shortly, Bobby. But anyway, can you just unpack that chipper story? I'm sure you know what I mean, and we haven't spoken before this, so I'm chucking
it's actually a true story with a little bit of dressing up. So, I'm like a lot of curious-minded people. I'm playing around with DJI drones. Everyone has them, and I got every type of them, crashed them into every tree I could. And sitting in my back garden with a couple of glasses of wine on board on a Friday night. My local chipper is about a mile away, a little bit more than a mile away. Once a month, I get a dirty big bag of chips with a load of salt and vinegar. I enjoy that. And when I was going down, another day to the chipper, I'm noticing that, combination of there's a guy outside in a big diesel car with the engine running, and that's the delivery driver that my local chip shop uses, and he sits there the whole night, nearly 5 days a week, sits there the whole night, engine running, and might do 5 or 6 deliveries in the night, thinking he's making a living out of it. He's not, because he's depreciating his car as he goes. And honestly, it was just, you know what, it'd be great fun to do a little project with my local chipper to give them a drone that they could fly to my house carrying a bag of chips. Literally, that was as simple as that. And then if you pull the thread a little bit, I think pretty much every thinking person comes to, drones can be a delivery device. And that's actually, it's a small stretch to, that's a business. And if you then look in, aside from the technical viability of it, and I forget about regulations and law, things like that, but technically very viable. I mean, very viable. And then economically, a little bit of research to figure it out, but you pretty quickly get to the capital cost of an aircraft, an industrial style one now, not your off the shelf, but an industrial style aircraft, capital cost, and then a unit cost, so the components that go into a per flight cost. When you consider both of those things, you end up with a really nice business. Underneath it all, it's a really high margin, profitable business when it scales. So the childish mind in me says, I don't see how this fails. Famous last words. And that's the start of it. The start of it was that. It was probably 6 months of evaluation and kind of proper technical diligence, commercial diligence, process, all that stuff. And I'm obviously not a spring chicken, as you can see. Without the beauty filter, I look my own age. No beauty filter in this StreamYard stuff. So, but I've done this before. I've built businesses before. I'm no genius, but I'm a programmer. Love writing code, still do. Know nothing about hardware, know nothing about aviation or aeronautics, anything like that. But I can put teams together, and I can run and grow, big technology teams. That's what I've done. This is my 5th startup. So I like doing that. I enjoy it. It's really genuinely, I love it. Coding, building business, entrepreneurial businesses, selling the story, and no problem with failure. So I was looking for a bigger gig than my last gig, something really impactful. And I just saw that this thing could not just be a whole ton of fun and learning, but also actually an absolutely gigantic business if it's successful. So that's kind of the crux of it. That was the start.
And how much money are you going through? Well, how many people have you got working with you at the moment? And how much money? I mean, you said it's a profitable business. You hitting a profit now?
Oh,
Or are you
Jesus,
burning?
no,
I
it's
think
not,
you're burning
not
quite a bit.
profitable. No, we lose just short of $1 million a month.
So
Yeah.
I
Take
shouldn't
my
laugh,
money.
but thanks for being so honest. That's perfect. Thanks for being so honest, because a lot of people would hide that.
You don't. Are we allowed curse on this thing or no? I presume.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I curse a lot. I shouldn't. I won't. Look, it's to get a certified aircraft and to have so in our world, in the regulated world, right? You essentially break down a company into design organization and production organization. The design organization is a regulated entity, as is the production organization. And there's a ton of overhead in producing an aircraft that's certifiable. You have to have an organization almost that's approved to design that aircraft. You really can't. While I love, building aircraft as hobbies, and we do loads of that, the whole team builds, hobby aircraft. To get something certified so that you're at sale for is a whole other ball game, and it's just expensive. The overhead of teams that get an operation license, an aircraft license, and so on. It just takes a lot of cash. And then we're on our 4th or 5th iteration now of aircraft on top of that, and then we're building the entire software stack the whole way up, right from. Now we have an open source flight controller. Take a guess which one we're using, mods to that. But everything above that is our own. We've got a governor stack on the aircraft that sits across 3 flight controllers, a triple X system that we built. It's our PCB. It's talking real-time comms to our cloud software, and our cloud software is this middleware that does the mission planning and UTM and integration with whatever is in the airspace. And then on top of that, we have a marketplace layer, which is all of our vendors, all their inventory, their pricing, selling, basket, consumer app. So the whole way up, we even make coffee. We in our operation, we have a coffee shop, and we operate the coffee shop and the pastries. And not because we want to make money out of selling 300 cups of coffee, but because we want to own the stack the full way up. And coffee, as it happens, is the number one killer use case for drone delivery, bar none. Nothing comes even close to coffee. So we want to understand all that. We're building.
Oh no, I'm not going to show. So is that the Manna Mini Mart?
Yeah, Heavenly Cafe. Yeah, and you can
Cafe.
download our app. I don't know what it'll do if you're outside of Ireland, but you can get the app and fart around with it.
Well, I'll speak to that in a minute because.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'll just jump straight into that right now, and then I'll jump back to where I was thinking. This is I thought, well, let's see if I can download his app. Let's see if I can. Let's see what can happen in South Africa.
We've nothing to hide. Really, it's a bit embarrassing, but we're not keeping doors closed.
But the thing is, it's just this is the first sort of thing here in South Africa or anywhere that I've been in the world where I've downloaded any. We have no delivery apps where I live. The nearest big shop 70 kilometers away. There's no such thing as a delivery app. So just the very idea, the very concept of it. But then I noticed with interest in here, there was things like software and books, the Manna bookstore. Why would anybody in 2023 be having a physical book delivered? It's just an aside. Or games.
Bunch of weirdos, if you ask me. But
absolutely,
I'm one of them. I love my physical books. I have never bought a Kindle or downloaded a book in my life. I love the physical books.
Fair enough.
And it's kind of when you take your last breath and leave behind whatever it is you're leaving behind. I think your book collection is something that's part of your legacy. And I love.
Not your Kindle.
I just built a brand new bookshelf, which is in another room. You can't see it, but I'm very proud of it. So anyway, look, there's plenty of people that buy books. It's not a hot use case, but I think But the reason you have all those different stores is even though we're small, we're in a town of 35,000 people now. So it's a tiny business now. We're just trialing and testing. We want to have every single product available to consumers so that we can understand what they really want, what behaviors look like, and collect that data over time, right? There we are. Fun fact, the video when you install the app, there's a video, I don't know if you noticed it for the first install. That's my wife and this other really handsome guy. I wasn't good enough looking for the video for my own wife, so we got a stunt double for that. But so anyway, we wanted to learn everything about what behavior looks like. So we have milk shop, we have burgers and fries, we have pizzas, we have all the coffee products, we have the instant products like the Coca-Cola and all the grocery stuff. We even have a deal with Samsung. You can order it. We've delivered a €1,200 phone. And we just want to understand it and play around with what does behavior look like when you really make this thing available. So that's why we have a bookstore.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
You mentioned you're on your 5th iteration of the delivery drone. I wondered what you'd learned in the previous 4 iterations, what you've revised and what you've changed, and whether it's been about the delivery side or whether it's been about performance.
Good question. So we started off as not a very good team of drone people, I would say. So the first drone was, well, I mean, that's unfair. I mean, we have a very good hardware team, but the first drone was really a proof of concept drone. So it really was a pretty simple device. And it was just simply to prove we could put computer vision, flight controller, control an aircraft and have a delivery device. And you'd never have flown it in the wild. We flew that for investor demonstrations. We never did much with it. First one, so that's version 1. Version 2 was not terribly unlike what you see there. Pretty straight. We call it the 3.8 series, and it's a quad coax, as you can see. And all the other iterations have been derivatives of this aircraft. Simply, we've gone from all carbon, it really just experiments to get lighter and lighter, faster and faster, not faster and faster, better wind handling, better, I suppose, tolerance of Irish weather, because nice thing about being in Ireland is you have world's largest wind tunnel for free. You never need to rent wind tunnel time. Honest to God, in our test site, which is a big bog in the center of the country, and I was looking today, our test pilots are getting, we document test missions that we want the pilots to fly. And so we'll say, okay, go, here's the mission. It's heading north, northeast or whatever, some heading. And we intentionally fly it so that it's with the wind. And then we'll do a 30-degree turn. So we know exactly, we can get a 12, 15 meter per second wind and control exactly the direction of the wind that we're going to get. So the testing's wonderful here. Flip side of that, of course, is when we're flying in production in the towns, the commercial towns we're operating in, we have to make sure the aircraft always comes home. And when you're flying into, as we are, we won't depart, but in fact, today we don't go over 7 meter per second, last 10 minutes average wind to take off. We'll fly in obviously nearly double that, no problem. In fact, the aircraft will fly happily in 16 meters per second. It's just that it may not come home if it's having to fly into the wind. So a lot of our optimizations have been around energy efficiency and lightening the aircraft, things like that, maybe bigger amount of energy in the battery as well. And so those iterations, and then constantly minor iterations after the architectural ones of safety, reliability. And I would say the biggest issue we've had, and we're at this 4 years now, the biggest issue in any engineering, whether it's virtual, i.e. software, or non-virtual, so hardware, is complexity. And it's easy to build an aircraft that's, that where you ignore complexity, and with complexity comes reliability issues, maintainability issues, and so on. So it's a process of elimination. Get every bolt out, get every cable out, shrink everything, remove everything. So you build the first one, and then you try and delete most of the things and simplify And you go through a process of that to get reliability in.
It's Colin Chapman. Colin Chapman's on the show.
Say again?
Colin Chapman is on the show. Make it lighter, make it simpler.
Yeah, no, I mean, any good engineer would say, like, even in, so I'm a software guy, I know very little about hardware. It's the same in software. The first version of something you write is messy as hell. It's got loads of extra stuff you don't need, and it's, you know, there's stuff you haven't thought of, and it's always good to I would say, boil it all down into a good stock. And it's just, hardware is that 10 times worse, right? Where failures are pretty ugly. And so we do massive amount of volume testing on the aircraft. So behind me, you see the live town, right, where we'll do 200 or 300 deliveries a day. But in our bog, where we can, lose aircraft all the time, we don't care what happens so long as we get the log files. And we do just genuine. We fly to test. We have simulations, of course, loads of simulations for every part of the stack. But there's nothing beats real flying in hard wind and rain. Over time, you see everything that can come loose comes loose. Everything that can fail will fail. And so you got to get out there and do that. And so what's taken us all the time, I think, is just iterating through. And I won't say we're anything near perfect yet, but we're very safe. And we're safe to the point where, and we don't have the most functional aircraft either. I mean, it's good on volume. It carries a lot of volume, which is important. Weight-wise, we're at 2.5 kilos now, moving to 3.5 kilos in the next iteration. So weight and volume.
I'm jumping. Sorry, it's very weird. But like things like Tesco's, I think have 4 kilo deliveries. So if you'll
correct.
do a Tesco,
did you see that on the app? Yeah, we do.
I saw it somewhere. So
you don't tell the customer, but they're getting 2 drones. Yeah.
2 drones. Yeah.
Yeah, you can virtualize it. And the thing around that is we probably won't do that at scale because we can take 3.5 kilos and 30,000 cubic centimeters. But I think for now, again, remember what we're doing is learning, not just about the hardware and the software, all that. We're also learning about behavior. And Tesco have told us that, look, the typical basket, the single basket market is this much volume and this much weight. So we want to test that theory and just get the customers transacting with us and getting their full breakfast and a load of potatoes or whatever they want without being constrained by the 2 kilos and current volume. So therefore we virtualize it and it works. And we learn a lot more about behavior and purchasing behavior, but albeit only in Ireland. But, you can look around, you can go to any big well-known brand restaurant takeaway, and just observe, and you're going to see these big family bags coming out with meal for 3 or 4 people. And if you look around at all the other drone delivery companies that are out there, most of them are not optimizing for volume, they're optimizing for distance. And we don't agree with that. We actually think the volume is a bigger, more important thing, and you should shrink the radius. And the reason you shrink the radius is not because physics it suits you, but actually because if you shrink the radius, then there's less volume of flights going over those people in the close concentric rings around your operation. So what you want to have is shorter radius overlapping circles and operations rather than big centralized really long distance ones for the societal acceptance of what you're doing. So there's all sorts of considerations that are nuanced that you don't see from the outside.
That's also going to hit. I mean, it's if ever you put popularity of something on a map, look at that. It always gets popular around towns. Why? Oh, that's because where the people are. So also, I mean, you're going to hit a point where that's, you could have a 500 kilometer range, but there might not be an awful lot of, not as many people as within 10Ks. I'm not putting that very well, but you're staying within the town or city.
But like here, for numbers, the way you think about numbers, population density. So for large suburbs or relatively most of European suburbs, population density is anywhere from 5 to 10,000 people per square mile that you're interested in. So we estimate the volume for a 2 kilometer radius at maturity. So when you have all the products and you're just throttling up, it's going to be about 1,000 flights a day in that cell, as we call it, a cell. So think about the concentric circle of people living within 200 or 300 meters of that operation. That's 1,000 flights, divided by 360 degrees. You need to be very cognizant of that volume of flights. So I don't see a lot of thinking, or at least not in public, about societal acceptance and how we mitigate any issues when we really scale up the volume. Because don't forget, with coffee and the things we're selling, it's going to be like we're selling now to 38% of the community more than twice a month, or nearly twice a month.
So hang on. Sorry, I've got to think about this. That's 38% of Balbriggan is ordering stuff.
Yeah, of that. So our average deliveries per month per household is 1.6, 1.7.
To 38% of the houses in Balbriggan.
Yes, correct.
Wow.
Yeah, like everyone uses the hell out of it, and again, this is not largely driven by coffee. It's driven by the fact that it works. It's really, really reliable.
But I know what Bruce will say. It sounds to me that like a couple of kilometers. That sounds like accurate trebuchet range. Is it the most, or how do you beat? How do you beat a lad on How do you beat a lad on an electric delivery bike? Where does that? How does
you don't on CO2. On CO2, you don't. The electric delivery bike is actually slightly more efficient than us. We beat everything else, obviously, but electric delivery bike. But on time, no, on the 200 meters thing, you probably don't, but you sure as hell do on cost and safety. I mean, the guy on the electric bike is going to be killed multiple times a year if they're meeting their numbers. It's
just a business expense.
Yeah, it is. It's just, I mean, you look around at the numbers for delivery drivers and cyclists injured or killed on the roads worldwide. Actually, particularly in South Africa, it's one of the worst countries for it. It is massive. And so, like, the guy on the electric bike is a good comparison because it is the best way to move stuff around with a human being doing it. But you still have to pay for the human being. And in the end, there's a limit on the number of people a community can get to do deliveries, particularly in the suburbs. It just doesn't work. The economics of it and the scalability of it don't work. And when it lashes rain on a Saturday night, when peak demand comes in, you're not going to get those guys. First of all those guys on delivery bikes are out partying because they're all students, so they're not available on Saturday night. And secondly, it's pissing rain. They don't want to work, right? So you got to think about how willing robots are to go down the mine versus humans are. It's just, there's no comparison to it. And so on one simple parameter, sometimes electric bike will win, but everything else, the drone wins. And actually, we ran a concurrent test last month with one very big burgers and fries brand. And, and we're only 2 kilometer radius there. We were nearly 4 times as efficient as the car. So look at those red lines there. Those are the equivalent car routes for the green dots are the deliveries. And obviously we're virtually crow flies, but we had nearly completed 3 deliveries by the time the car got back from 1 delivery.
Just to
the guy on the bike isn't going to bring down a new one.
No, he's not. The guy on the bike isn't going to bring that down.
Can I just jump in with well, 2 things? There was a comment you popped up, Gary, about if a rotor goes, well, that's not going to fall out anyway because it's that coaxial, isn't it?
Well, so if you lose a motor, your drone falls out of the sky and kills someone. No. In fact, you can see this. We have a parachute, and we actually deployed it once where we lost a rotor, exactly that, and we lost it in an ugly way. We lost one side, so actually we could continue flying, but the vibrations got over a certain level, so the parachute deployed. So that's happened, but no, you don't. A Sail 4 aircraft, the technical term for it, or a 10 to the minus 6 aircraft with a parachute is one that's certifiably, we can recover from 2 lost motors actually. And our new aircraft, you've seen the aircraft there is a quad coax, so 4 arms with 2 motors in each arm. We're actually moving to an octo configuration. And so,
you have to go wrong. You were saying simplification, make things lighter, take parts out. So you go in the opposite direction. And the other thing, though, is that
no, not really. No, the quad coax is as complex wiring wise as an octo. There's a religion about which is better, which is not.
So what happens if you're going to certify these craft? One of the things I've noticed in this industry is that technology, availability changes almost on a daily basis. So you get your craft certified with all these motors and these things, and then you can't buy that motor anymore, or you can't buy that particular flight controller anymore. How are you going to factor that into things? Because that's going to be a huge capital cost moving forward, keeping the certification on your craft.
Correct. So yeah, and you're not going to see us buying motors from vendors that are going to go away. So in our certified aircraft, we have pretty industrial style motors, and they're not like on the aircraft you've seen. Those are T-motor parts. We're in our new aircraft, we have motors with a 4,000 hour MTBF on them. They're industrial motors from industrial suppliers that are contracted for volume. So you move from what I would say, not hobby parts, it's a bit of an unfair word, but you move from off-the-shelf COTS parts to more engineered, contracted suppliers for specific parts. And motors, obviously the critical one, but there's other ones. Props and batteries are other ones where, you know, you can go in that current aircraft. We're using Tattoo LiPo batteries. They're great. They've served us well. But ultimately at scale, we'll be contracting battery, not cells, we'll be contracting battery packs with industrial suppliers that are there for the long run. And in fact, on the airframe side, we're even outsourcing the airframe to production certified organizations to produce those airframes for us. So you go from off-the-shelf COTS things which suit us now to stable supply chain.
So really what will happen is the aircraft will cost more, but there'll be contracts there, so you've got the reassurance that those parts are there long term. A question, an observation as much as anything, but something you'll be able to jump in on as well. As you mentioned, you've been going 4 years. I think you've been very fortunate in Ireland that you've been given the freedom in regulation to be able to actually get this business running and, you know, flying in residential areas. I think if you're trying to do that in, say, the UK or many other countries, you would have really struggled and probably, you know, it would set you back many years. Did you feel you've been very fortunate in Ireland, and why do you think that was?
I think we're fortunate in Europe, not just Ireland. So EASA has the ASORA-based risk approach to risk. It has the LUC, and it has Airspace. And it has not every market in Europe, but many markets in Europe really want drone delivery to happen. And Ireland is one of them. But I could point to Switzerland, Belgium, Poland. I could point to a bunch of other markets in Europe that are up for this. And the nice thing about Ireland as well, not just the regulator is wanting to move things forward, but so is the government. The government, in fact, is very pro-business, and that combination, it's a kind of perfect storm. We're a small country, 5 million people, that needs and wants to punch above its own weight from a technology standpoint. So government, very, very pro-business. And that percolates the whole way through to all the government entities, including the state regulator, ANSP, you name it. So it is an environment where people aren't looking down their noses at us like we're some, you know, piss poor part of aviation. They're applauding us and want us to succeed, and so Ireland is a great place to be. However, our license, we have an LUC in the EASA LUC, which entitles us to run this operation absolutely anywhere we want in Europe. So I could take that behind me now to Spain, to Switzerland, to Poland, and operate if I had the money, which I don't. We're not ready to scale it yet anyway, but Europe is ready. And even France and Germany have both said they'll have Airspace implemented this year. And Airspace is the final bit, right? Airspace is the bit that kind of allows general aviation and our sector to talk to each other essentially and to avoid each other. And it's elegant in its simplicity and clarity about stakeholders, prioritization, so on.
One concern with that, though, is something we've talked about in the show before, so you probably wouldn't have heard it, but I think the idea that all the general aviation will all cooperate and have the transponders on it won't turn out to be true. Because it's
the UK now. So I can speak for the UK in that soon, and I'm not allowed to speak for this, but I might just say it. soon transponder mandatory zones will be announced, and general aviation will have to comply.
That's effectively use space. That's effectively use space.
Yeah, well, the point, the comparison making is in marine. You're supposed to have it on, and basically businesses are turning it off, they're deactivating it, they're spoofing the GPS. So, for example, you might have a plane and it's carrying cargo it shouldn't be carrying, so they won't put the transponder on, or they'll.
But that plane's not going to be flying at 50 meters.
Well, no, but it still brings that the issue when you talk about you have this entire vision of the airspace. I think the reality will be we'll never quite have that, because not everyone's they're gonna have, for whatever reason, they're not going to want to cooperate with that. I mean,
100%. There's always going to be people that will do whatever the hell they want. In fact, we in not this town, but in the town in Galway where we were last year, we had a guy who owned a private helicopter owner, small helicopter, and he constantly buzzed right over our base where we were, lower than our own flight altitude. We were grounded a few times because we had observers spotting him, and that's illegal, obviously. And he could lose his license. We don't want that to happen, of course, but it stems from a lack of education and awareness as much as it does intentionally doing it, right? But so use space is a set of rules. It's not physical separation, right? Everyone has to obey them, but it is the law in Europe. I mean, so it has been not just regulated and written into rules, it is the law. And every EU market must implement those laws from this January onwards. So there's delays, obviously, in implementation, but they'll get there. And we're very pleased with it. We see that it's a scalable system. It's fair to everyone. It allows for prioritization of important traffic that's obviously more important than a hamburger. And it's very clear. So the responsibility is on people that share the airspace, and it is on that helicopter person or that light aircraft person to get the 50 quid transponder, wherever it costs, and to be respectful user of the airspace. And I don't think we should talk any further than that. Those are the rules, follow the rules, right?
Because everyone follows the rules.
Aren't you coming from a little bit of a sort of a dare I say, I'm afraid I slightly disagree with you, Bobby, just because you've come not from an aviation background, but when this gig started, Chris Anderson, ex of Wired, 3D Robotics, etc., but basically Silicon Valley sort of chap, was convinced that regulators would move out of the way for this new aviation industry that was coming, and look, we're bright and shiny and new, and look at all the wonderful things we'll be able to do, and it's proved quite the opposite. So perhaps EAS is moving there.
Chris is in the worst part of the world to get a drone delivery business going.
Quite so. So.
I mean,
but
I do think that's going to change. I think with Part 108, I think they are going to move forward, and there will be a lot of activity. Maybe not this year, but certainly next year. And in fact, in the UK too, with UK adopting SORA methodology for risk assessment, I think that's the real start of things. Like you're 100% going to see us in the UK, if not the end of this year, early next year, doing some SORA-based project, I would think. That's what we like.
You have got the foot in the door in America with Coca-Cola, which I must say, congratulations. For it was Coke, wasn't it? I think it was. But I think
Coke is a worldwide thing, but the foot in the door in the US is Hillwood. It's a community in the Fort Worth area where we have very important people there helping us out. But it's a Part 107 operation. It's nothing near as complex as what we're doing in Ireland, unfortunately. But that's Part 107.
Yeah, I've got to go soon.
Just come to Dublin, isn't it? Sorry, Bruce.
No, I've got to go soon. So I have some questions. Now, as everybody knows, I'm an avid fan of drone delivery. I think it's the future. Not really. So that's stating my position. Now, you're saying that you're not making a profit. I'd be interested to know how you've structured things. Obviously, you've got a development arm where you're developing this technology, and that's incurring huge costs. Have you separated out your delivery business as a separate profit center so that you can verify the profitability of this by removing the development costs from that particular operation? And if not, why not?
Well, we have, of course. That's simple accounting.
But it's still not making a profit.
No, of course not. You don't make a profit until you scale, and you don't scale when you're making negative margin on a per flight basis. So
That's right,
the
negative margin. How much are you charging to deliver a coffee, for instance?
£4.
£4 to deliver. How much is a coffee worth?
Average basket value in the coffee shop is about 15 to 20 quid.
So we're not talking about just a coffee like an espresso, please, and it arrives at your doorstep. We're talking about something more than that.
No, 100%. Yeah, think about it. Delivery at home. There's more than one person getting the product, and they're usually getting pastries and something for the kids as well.
Okay, so the coffee delivery is more of a cafe style delivery than just a coffee. Like when you go into Starbucks and say, "I'll have an espresso, please," and you walk out with a cup, because those things are quite important to get in this, to establish what we're talking about. Because when people say coffee delivery, I expect, just like Wing delivers a coffee cup with coffee in it for nothing because they don't charge, and that's why they've made so many deliveries. And what I'm saying is there's obviously a novelty value here associated with drone delivery. Lots of people want it because, hey, it's a drone delivery. What happens when that wears off? What happens when it becomes simply a case of, is this actually value for money? Because I see the drone delivery industry is just like the computer internet industry in 1998. Everyone's looking for big margins, huge potential. They're talking about huge monies. I saw someone talk about a $1 trillion industry is the drone delivery industry. It's going to be a $1 trillion industry. And I'm thinking, I remember what happened early in 2000 when all those dreams were shattered and someone cashed the reality check. And a lot of people lost their shirts because they were betting on the promises, and the promises weren't delivered. Yeah, drone delivery will come, but it took an extra decade for the internet to become big and profitable. And even then, you've only got a few major players that are creating all that profit. So what do you think about, what is the time frames you're looking at here to become profitable, where you can actually set up an operation? And are you going to franchise this, or are you going to run your own operations? What's your commercial take on it as you move forward?
We're not going to franchise it. That's last question first. So the way to think about profitability is, first you reach unit profitability. So every flight has a positive margin. We will be there this year. Every one of our flights will make more money on the flight than it costs us to operate it this year. Then you look at the next layer up, which is location profitability. So each individual location, with all the overhead of setting up a location, forget about the capital cost, the operational cost of hiring the people, renting the base, putting all the infrastructure in. Location profitability we will also reach early next year once we get over 200 deliveries per site. So once you have location positive contribution, then you can scale, and that ultimately dilutes your R&D cost over time. But you need scale to do that. But once you get the sensible flight economics, then you choose volume by location. You get that to a contribution positive manner, and then you can roll out, because you're multiplying a positive number, not a negative number. That's basic economics, and that works. And we've already proven that on our side. And really, the only thing that we've been waiting on has been the European regulations, Airspace particularly, to be implemented, to be able to fly at scale, and for us to be actually ready ourselves. So it is rational. In fact, you're going to make money selling one single onion with drone delivery. It's literally the incremental margin, incremental cost per flight at scale is going to be about $1 maximum. So you can actually make a lot of money flying trivial products. And so the argument that Wing have about selling one coffee or one thing, they will make money doing that, because their marginal cost per flight is depreciation on battery, and for them amortizing the aircraft over its useful life, about 1,000 flights. Just so
I get that in my head correctly, you're saying it's going to be the cost to you is going to be $1 a flight for that delivery of stuff.
I can't believe that.
And that's within.
What do you think it is?
A 3 kilometer radius.
Let's debate this. Let's debate this. We know it.
Look for a start, battery life. Now you're saying you're going for industrial quality components, not hobby stuff. So your batteries are going to be really expensive. Your motors are going to be really expensive. Now, if you look at to make it viable,
we're making assumptions here. We'll back those up. The battery, you're getting 800 cycles out of a lithium-ion battery. It's a commodity product.
Lithium-ion or LiPo? You're going lithium-ion then?
Lithium-ion. So your input cost for battery is about 30 cents per flight.
Okay, but you're going to have is it one battery per flight, or do you have so many flights per battery charge because you're working with a small radius?
One charge, one full battery per flight.
Okay, so you're going to have several batteries sitting there. You've got a lot of capital costs because to keep the drone in operation.
5 batteries per aircraft,
Yeah, so you're charging those at 1C, not faster.
Right. Yeah.
So, and you've got a guaranteed how many cycles does that? 500 or something, was it?
800.
800 cycles. And have you proven that in operation?
Of course, and certified.
Certified. That's good. And because I'm looking at here in New Zealand, to get certain craft operating, you have to have things, your operation manual, you have to have propellers done by time, not by condition, batteries done by time, not by condition, all those things there. Is there much of a headway to go to ensure that these things are maintained and that you've got this, because that's a huge capital investment. You've got to get that minimum quantity of operations to make it work. And then you've got systems such as, how many people are actually overseeing this? Is it fully autonomous, or do you have to have someone on standby in case something happens? Like, for example, in October last year, the GPS went out over a 40-mile radius of an airport in the USA. What happens when that happens with you? All your drones go into parachute mode?
Questions at once, a million. We've done 160,000 flights now. We haven't done enough to be sure, but we're reasonably confident that the input costs that we're operating on now will stick as they are, and therefore our input costs will be less than $1 per delivery. Wow. And that's including the human overhead, the observer overhead, assuming an 8-to-1 ratio of people to aircraft, or aircraft to people, I should say. And we all know that you can have a lot more than that if you have an autonomous aircraft, which we do. There's no remote control for our aircraft. There's no sticks. There's no input into it. So you'd argue, why have any people at all? Which is a good argument. So our cost per delivery is actually the person that loads the aircraft. We've got a hot swap system of a cargo bay, which is the battery as well. Our turnaround time is less than 60 seconds. Mostly it's about 30 seconds. So we get routinely between 6 and 7 deliveries per hour per aircraft with that hot swap system. And once you treat your batteries well, you're going to be fine. So you keep them at a certain temperature, you have a BMS, you don't charge them over 90, and you don't let them go under 30. You get those 800 cycles out of a standard lithium-ion battery. And then the other things, depreciate motors. Well, I mean, your typical T motor, I forget the motors we have at the moment, but you'll only get a couple hundred hours out of those if you're lucky. But our new motors are absolutely going to get us 3,000 to 4,000 hours certifiably. So you're looking at it from a 6-minute flight, that is a really diluted overall cost of operation. So no, don't doubt it. 100% the cost will be less than $1 unless there's packaging overhead.
The model you're running, you're basically saying we're doing everything. It's like the wing model where everyone delivers something to a central warehouse and you distribute from there. You're not dropping into businesses to pick up something and then deliver it from there. Is that the case?
I think he does that as well on some of them, don't you, Bobby?
Yeah, today we operate a centralized model where the vendors are on the roof with us or they run the product up to us. So we want them to be close, like as in really close, because it doesn't work. We've actually tried it where the vendors are a few hundred meters away or whatever. It doesn't work. Operationally, it's too messy. It doesn't work. And that surprised us, but we've proven that doesn't work. So centralized base with high throughput providers. So think coffee, convenience, a couple of brands like pizza, burgers and fries, really popular stuff that will get a lot of volume every night or every day, whatever. Those you centralize and they're exclusively for drone delivery. But our new system is a hive and perch model where we actually fly out to the vendor, pick up the product and then fly to the consumer. So that will allow us to have a fragmented supply base. And
that would have a higher delivery cost because you've got a 2-part flight.
No, you just want to kill this. Not at all.
I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it from the point of view. If I had $1 million, would I invest?
It's an extra 20% of power. Actually, most of your power is because you're going up and down again. That's actually the cost. It's not the distance. And so no, it's not. It's well within our ConOps for the battery. We've a battery that's way over spec for the distance we're going to fly. Don't forget, we're going to fly. Well, we'll fly more than 2 clicks. We'll probably fly 3 kilometer radius, something like that. And therefore, you don't need a lot of energy or a big battery to accomplish that. But we've way over-spec the battery for good reason. And we incorporate into that not just worst case wind for the flight envelope, but also that extra hop. You're not going to get, I know you want to, but you're not going to prove that this is not going to work because it does work. We're already doing it.
The only person who can prove that is you.
But is Because did you say you've been going 4 years?
There's a good reason we've raised nearly $50 million of capital from bankers, because they know the numbers.
How many .com businesses raised that much money in the lead up to the .com crash, though? That's what I'm saying. There is a novelty aspect. There is people think this is gold.
You're wrong on
gold.
that.
Yeah.
You're wrong on that as well. I mean, we're in the town we're operating in now. We have a large cohort of people already on over 100 deliveries each. And as I said, the frequency, so adoption rate, you're right. The first order is a novelty order. Of course it is. The first few orders are novelty. People are filming and everything. But no, the data points very well to our loyalty is way stronger even than row-based delivery from the big platforms. People use it. And I know you don't want to hear that, but it's not just very popular from adoption, but frequency and loyalty, the numbers stack up are really strong.
I was going to add on, Bobby.
This was the point I wanted to go.
And we're charging, by the way. It's important to say we charge for every delivery, so we're not juicing it.
But you've been going for 4 years. Hang on, Ian. And I just want to get this one. You've been going 4 years, I think. So how come?
Yeah, when COVID rolled in, so the November before that. Yeah, so end of 2018.
So is your secret sauce then your analysis of a market in a town? Because the easy thing to say is, well, Amazon's been at this 10 years and done blow all for lots of reasons. I don't like Amazon for many reasons, but they've got so Amazon must have 1,000 people working on, maybe they don't, 500 people working on this, and they've done blow all. So what have they done wrong that you believe you've done right, if that can be said?
I mean, I'm a huge Amazon fan. I use the service all the time as a consumer. I think they have an amazing team over in Seattle and various different places. I think they have a really interesting aircraft. They're not a bunch of idiots. They're a very smart team. However, they're solving a much more difficult problem than we're solving. They're flying a 90-pound aircraft. Trying to get that certified is next to impossible. They're in a country that has not embraced drones yet. It is going to, but it's been slow to. So they've had a really difficult time just making progress. They've been regulatory purgatory for 10 years. I don't blame this on Amazon. I blame it on America that they haven't had the environment to let them get running. Now, you might argue, and I'm neutral on this, you might argue that the aircraft architecture, I enjoyed it. Let's do this again. You might argue that the choice of aircraft.
Get well soon to your wife, Bruce. Get well soon to your wife. He's off to see his wife in hospital.
All right. You might argue that the aircraft, right, is too big or whatever, but the spec they were given from Jeff Bezos at the start was 5 pounds, 9 miles. And that is clearly to optimize their own network for those rural deliveries, those pain in the ass deliveries, whatever, right? And I think there was, I won't say tail wag dog, but it was a commercial requirement that was virtually impossible to deliver. So I actually think they've done a really good job. I think the aircraft is cool. It's obviously too heavy to be getting a straight run with the regulatory, but I think don't ever bet against Amazon. They'll get there. They've had a hard time, particularly hard time, but they'll get there, and I'd love to see them get there, because I'm a big believer in drone delivery. I would love to be getting my Amazon stuff delivered by drone. But look around at the other. So why are we doing so well? Wing are doing 20,000 deliveries a month. I mean, I look at Wing and I say, very happy to say they're a year ahead of us. They're maybe even more. They're an incredibly smart team. They've got a wonderful, safe, scalable platform in their aircraft. They've demonstrated that, down in Australia, how well this is received. And I don't think that's anything to do with charging. I think they could charge, people still use it. So you look at them and say, that's another tech giant that actually quietly is just getting on with it and doing a great job. And then there's others too.
Don't they really want to be in charge of the UTMs, those companies? Isn't that really their end game?
No, not at all. No. I mean, I've heard that said about, look, Google rightly get bashed, sometimes about the data and the monopoly on search and all of these things. But Wing and all of the X projects are genuine, really interesting R&D projects that have evolved into something else. And no, my belief is that they're a good bunch. I think they have the good intention. They have the same dream that we do of getting everything brought to you by drones. And I think their UTM is an effort for them to just move the industry forward by making it, just removing one more obstacle for everyone in moving forward, by making the thing open source or making it available easily and promoting it. They're not going to get any benefit from commanding the UTM space. I would argue that's one of those things that's going to need to be free or virtually free with no strategic advantage for anyone. I don't think so. I love the guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bob, I think a lot of people that are skeptical about drone delivery, and I was one of those. I was as skeptical as Bruce.
Come to Dublin.
I was as skeptical as Bruce was originally. In fact, actually, before I go on, I'll read you my tweet. This is back in 2020, I think 2021, is it? Let me see. Yes, it is. I said, because I was agreeing with Bruce here, because as I say, he was so skeptical on the topic. I said, of Manor, this was speaking of at the time, they don't fly in the rain. The max load is 2 kilograms. You have to have a pilot on standby to take over if something goes wrong. So it's a test with many limitations. Now, I know you've come on to it, and in fact, a few days after that, I thought, well, is this, because there was actually another guy there actually jumping in and saying, actually, no, he thought you were more credible than it looked at the first glance. So I thought, well, I'll tweet you, because I've seen with other startups in the past where you'll have the CEO and, all happy to sell the product and how it is. And the moment you quiz him, you don't get any answers back, or they just don't make any coherent sense. Now, I know when I quizzed you on Twitter, and I gave you a few tough questions, you did answer. You didn't know me from Adam, from anyone else.
If you can ever tell me an answer I haven't answered, a question I haven't answered, I'll give you a prize. We're super transparent about what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's important, I think, like, this is such a hard industry to move forward. I don't think it's any benefit to anyone competing with anyone right now. We just need to get flying together, and we can go compete a few years down the road and kill each other. But the hard part to solve now is to actually get the industry going. So you see, look at Wing. Wing are literally 4 miles away from us in that operation behind me in Balbriggan. There's a good reason for that, right? Because it is important that we show the world we can share the same airspace, right? So we move forward. So I love answering the questions about it, because there's nothing to hide. Like, we fail, we have problems, we have, I sometimes feel we're going super slow, and you say we're beating Google or Amazon. We're not really. We just probably talk more about it. Like a company like Google or Wing, they can't talk in public about these things. They're a public company. They're not at will. They just can't. Whereas a small private company, we can do whatever the hell we want. And I believe that it's important to involve everyone in this discourse, because you can see in the comments there, I think most of the people are saying it's never going to happen, or they don't believe in it. And I find that really interesting, because actually, usually in a community of technologists, roboticists and stuff, it's really open-minded, let's go for it people. But I find that part of this industry is more negative on what we're doing than the children in the schools that I speak to. So there's 16.
I think
the answer's easy there, isn't it? It's because traditional model aircraft flyers, and to a certain extent now drone drivers, are being pushed underground by regulators, stopping that 16-year-old in England. That 16-year-old in England can't fly an RC model aircraft anymore.
It's funny, actually. That surprised me, right? Because that's certainly the sentiment in Ireland, where the UAV community at large, the private responsible operators feel like they're being pushed aside. I certainly see it. I don't know if it's true or not, if it's a sentiment, but I certainly see that, and I feel that might have been rooted in a lack of engagement with those guys by the regulator, or both, right? I'm not sure which. But it's certainly, I can speak to Ireland and say that has absolutely happened in Ireland, but it's been addressed now that we have the regulator has a drone champion. He's engaging with the community regularly, and the community has I think anyway, everything that they need to still be able to fly without, big giants like Mana getting in the way. And I can tell you, when we got our LUC and when we were flying in Galway, there was a lot of questions as how the hell are they doing that? And we're not allowed to do this stuff. And the truth is because, we've got that extra layer of safety and governance as an entity that's regulated under an LUC that does allow a regulator to what essentially delegate authority to us because we're certified for that. So, and it's harder for a regulator to deal with, the wedding photographer, the whatever, right? It just, I would say it's a casualty of the order of doing things, not that anyone wants to stop anyone from flying, I don't think.
I think you can argue, he said stuttering. I think you can argue that traditional aircraft has been around. Well, every single model aviation authority is older than a model aviation group, like the British Model Flying Association in the UK, is older than the aviation regulator in the country in that they're operating. Been around a lot longer, and they've just been. It feels to that community that they've just been shoved to one side. Off you go, get out of here. We want that first 500 feet for this now, please. We didn't care about it before, but now we want to monetize. I'm not having to go at you directly here, Bobby.
No,
directly monetize this, and then
I have no issues. I mean, every stakeholder has to be understood and somehow incorporated into this, constrained space, which is the air, right? And there's commerce, of course, that has to access the air, but of course, everyone should be able to access the air. And I think UTM is the start of defining how that works. I think Uspace goes a long way towards that too. So I don't see, once you have conspicuity on aircraft, I don't see it being particularly in any way not solvable. Like your model airplane, in the end, I think it's fair to ask everyone to be conspicuous. I don't see how just because you were there first means you own the airspace. I think you have to share the airspace with newcomers as well, right?
I don't think there's that opinion of the only airspace. They just want to not be kicked out of it. And also, there's the conspicuity is bringing in issues of its own, which aren't being addressed. Like, we've seen it in the UK where normal commercial drone pilots are having to put body cams on now for threats. We've had, guns pulled on people. Now, if it gets in America, they're doing the remote ID where it says where the pilot is. And it's inevitable someone is going to get killed. They're going to get shot, either from someone being just these NIMBYs that are just paranoid about drones, thinking, you're filming my property, and they'll go too far. But also theft as well. You might be flying, an M30. It's 10 grand's worth of kit. That's more than you get from a post office robbery. And you're saying exactly where the pilot is. So all they have to do is rock up. They know you've got a laptop. They know you've got the drone. They'll even be able to see on that one model yard. So you can actually use it as a shopping list to go around and get them. So it's a problem with the way it's being done, and that the pilot should never.
I mean, you could say that about it. You could say that about a car too. I mean, a car has a license, a registration, and I can go up and take your car as well if I want.
But no, it's different with a car, because this is the knowledge that goes back when we started, that if you turn your Ferrari on in your garage, it's not pinging out the rest of the entire city saying, I've got a Ferrari at this address. Because a drone, the moment you turn it on, is pinging out that information. And it's the fact that it's pinging out where you are as well. So it's really the issue of putting where the pilot is. Now, we don't know that the UK will do that yet. We don't know.
We do know. We do know. But we don't know. We do know that it's been approved in the. Anyway, but
no, not about me though. But have they actually said?
So
they haven't said, but it's coming in 2025.
No, I'm not about when it's coming. I'm about
what do you think is the answer? I mean, if you're not conspicuous, how can everyone else avoid you?
I think aircraft can be conspicuous. I think, as in manned aircraft can have EQ. That's fine. We can have some form of RID, can be conspicuous. It's also cool, but we must consider what information that RID systems put out. Now, in America, they said, oh, no. Well, it's only going to be short-range Bluetooth, whatever. I mean, you've got to be right next to the thing. The FAA have already commissioned a company to set up receiver sites across cities to aggregate the data from multiple short. They're already they're crossing their fingers behind their backs.
Let's answer this question, and then we could probably move on, because the airspace has to be shared by everyone, right? What's the technical
fair and
approach to
equitable
that?
way?
How do you do that?
There's another point on that though, Bobby, because this is one where on Twitter, and it was early days, so I don't think everyone got it, but Altitude Angel in the UK are doing it without conspicuity, i.e. a drone could come into the airspace that is not doing any RID, and it will still find it, because what they're doing is they're using the counter drone detectors. So you're using RF, and then you're using the pan tilt zoom heads and other sensors. So you can literally check the airspace, work out what's there. If it's something that isn't approved, you can redirect your traffic around it. So you can feasibly work without the conspicuity. But that aside, I don't think anyone has issues with the drone saying, hello, I'm here anyway. It's the fact that it's been taken to those further degrees. And I don't think, Gary, that's actually been said in the UK, we're going to do it as bad as what they've done it in the US. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we don't. But I think that in itself will create problems, because when we're saying we're giving that information away, and there's some Karen with the app, and they're going on Facebook, and they're going, there's a drone pilot within 2 miles of school, he must be a pedo, and there's a whole gang going out from Facebook to go and kick his head in.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem that the industry has, assumption about the intent.
I think when all that, if we end up down that road, then what will happen is people will pay for hacks. They will hack the drone. That information won't be out there, and we end up in a worse situation than we are now, because you have it all muddled then, because you still don't see a lot of it, because people feel they're not safe to have it. So I'm just hoping that in the UK and further afield that we learn from what America's doing and say that's the wrong way. It should be the police and airports, or someone that's genuinely.
It's not just America. Europe is this way too. Europe is absolutely requiring conspicuity.
No, that's what I'm on about. Is it specifically saying this is the pilot? Because I know in the US, the standard even has the standard on the GPS and the location and the accuracy of that is more on the pilot than it is on the drone. So they even put a more specific requirement on. We need to know where the pilot is. And that just seems, because they made it public, that has made it an issue.
I mean, I'm not sure of the reason for needing to know who owns the aircraft probably is important, but where the pilot is at the time, I'm not sure what the rationale is there. But
because
the flight plan, the pilot is. But
RID was brought in to identify bad actors about to do something nasty. It wasn't designed for conspicuity in the aviation sense. It's not meant for that. You could argue that all DJI drones have conspicuity anyway. They announce their positions and things like that anyway, and they always have. RID was bought in because of a particular UTM vendor bought into a manufacturer of boards in China, and they wanted to get something on everything, and they were going to sell it to everybody. That's where that all came from. And it's suddenly got adopted as a good idea without maybe 50-year thinking. You're right, we need to have this conversation. But there needs to be 50 or 100-year thinking about this. ADSB is awful. It's a terrible standard that was made in 1990 and hasn't moved and can be hacked in so many ways. It's so easy to put a false ADSB transmission into the sky. That's not fit for purpose. We need I know this is magical thinking, really. But there needs to be a proper sit down, a proper think about it, unbiased. How are we going to do it? How are we going to electronic conspicuity has increased safety in gliding and ultralights and paragliders dramatically. They are.
We have a hang gliders right beside us there in Balbriggan, actually.
Yeah, and do they use FLARM and
they do
the other one? Yeah, so you can see them quite easily. Yeah. So it's a good example of a community that's done that, because it does two things for them. They can see each other and not hit each other, and also then they can see where the thermals are. So it has actually created a little bit of a congestion problem sometimes. Yeah. But that happened with that. That's not ADSB. That's low-cost devices. Low-cost devices like this. I can turn this into a FLARM. So it's Yeah,
But
what I'm
it's
trying
quite
to say, along with
straightforward. It's quite straightforward to allocate the airspace in a very granular way, corridors over a certain amount of time, and give, like, if you want to go out into your backyard and fly your DJI or whatever for 20 minutes in a certain region, that's all supported with UTM and USpace. There's absolutely there's nothing stopping you.
But remember that original UTM was going, they wanted network remote ID because they wanted to make it pay to play, pay per flight. So that's where this was going in the FAA.
Well, that's not going to happen. Like, okay, yeah, I could understand that being a fear for sure, but that's not going to happen. In the end, Europe anyway is going to require everyone to allocate the airspace before they fly in it in a super dynamic way, a software stack. And I don't see anything that's going to stop the wedding photographer or the hobbyist going out with either their model airplane or their drone and saying, here's where I'm going to fly. This is my space. I request access to that space. Approved. Off you go. I don't think that's difficult technically.
You've said earlier, and I don't mean to argue, you've said earlier that you've not come from a model aircraft or an aviation background. I think you mustn't repeat Chris Anderson's mistakes of believing that the world will get out of the way for drones and we'll change everything and it'll be equitable and fair, because it's proved to be anything. Well, I know we spoke about the coaxial patent last year or the year before or whatever it was. People come in and try and grab bits of this industry, and I suppose when you sit on the outside, that's all you end up seeing is the dodgy buggers grabbing stuff. I'm not saying that you're doing that at all, and it sounds
but if I look at where Europe has come from with the regulations that they've devised, I think they've done it with the right intent, and they've incorporated pretty much all of the stakeholders, the community, the businesses, the industries, the towns, the wildlife, you name it. They've done the studies, and I'm struggle to see stakeholders that have not been incorporated into the regulations.
I think you'll find every model aircraft association in the EU, UK, and USA and Australia.
Well, let's talk about that then. Have they been told not to fly?
Yes, in lots of places.
Where and by who?
Well, you've got the gut reaction to Gatwick causing the areas around.
That's not Europe. That's UK.
EU.
I'm talking about EU reg. Sorry, I didn't mean to joke. I didn't mean to, but what I'm saying is EU.
All right. Okay. Well, what about the age restriction? What's the age restriction in under EASA? I can't think about off the top of my head. I know it's 18 in the UK. I think it's 16 in EASA. So if you're under 16, you now need to have, and most of our viewers will have started flying model aircraft when they were youngsters. I started when I was 8, 9, or 10, and eventually paper around and all those sort of things. Got my radio controllable airplane. My parents would have got I can't remember the bits of paper you get under EASA now. They would have got those bits of paper to help to support me in my wish to fly because I was under 16, but they wouldn't have had the time to be stood next to me because they both worked. So I would have been lucky. My parents would have supported me, but there'll be plenty of 15, 13. You mentioned schools earlier and how keen they are. There's plenty of schools, and this is happening in America now. America's facing only being allowed to have 2,000 model aircraft flying sites in the whole of America. That's what the FAA are proposing now, that there will be restricted to 2,000 sites. And that's being laid by a very large community. I think it's 3.5 million people. I can't remember what the membership is of various things there. But that's being laid at the minute. The model aircraft flyers there are pretty angry, and it's being laid at the door of.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. All right, yeah. So what's the proposal from the model aircraft lobby to solve this?
Well, that's a bit churlish of the drone delivery companies thinking they're going to come in and make money with airspace people have been using and flying freely and easily for the last 100 years.
It's not meant to be. It's simply I think the regulations, certainly in EU, do actually cater for that, and there's nothing stopping a model airplane user from using the airspace. I can't see anything that stops them. So if that's not true, tell me why that's not true in the EU under U-Space. And if it is true that they're being stopped, on what basis? Because I don't see it. I see that they're not being stopped so long as they obey Conspicuity rules and adopt U-Space, then, and that's straightforward with no cost. I don't see how.
I mean,
they're being
obviously,
stopped.
I don't know how it is in wider Europe, but I have seen concerns around a lot of UTM in that I've seen the companies that have been there in the US that have been lobbying, and the videos they're putting out to get their own investment, and they were all pay to play. We're going to charge
on U-Space, yeah.
And that's a bit concerns me when it comes down to people casually flying the drone. Because one thing you'll have noticed, I'm sure, Bobby, being in the industry now, even though you're not from a drone background initially, because you're working with them every day and seeing your drone flying about, you'll notice if you look up at the sky, you hardly ever see a drone. I never, ever see any drones flying about. And we always say, Christmas, everyone will have drones, the sky will be full of them. Never is. We know that actually the amounts of flights, they're not all that often when normal drones. People wait till like the weekend. They mainly do it in summer. They're just going out. They're going to get they're just going to get something scenic. So they'll get, often it'll be sunset and then it's back down. So they're not flown in the way that the media and a lot of regulators try to make about the skies.
Well, you're right and you're wrong. You call it nearly perfectly right. However, it's not we're not worried about everyone doing it. It's the occasional, and we've seen it in all the towns we've operated. There'll be one irresponsible, maybe two. There's two in the town where we operate now. They frequently chase our drone with theirs to film us, or they'll go up 200-300 meters and film the whole thing from up there. And it's not the whole town. It's very rare, but there's enough of those idiots that you have to somehow fix it somehow, not through law, but through some form of restriction to stop those morons doing that, because they're going to kill themselves or someone else doing it. Those are the guys that cause the problem for everyone. And they are there. You're right to say your typical guy that gets the drone at Christmas time, they're using it for, the right reasons. They're going to take beautiful picturesque shots. They're going to learn. They're going to all that stuff. But there's enough people that we have to find an answer for it that actually, we've seen in Dublin Airport recently, just morons that they know what they're doing and they don't care.
I would say on Dublin, though, that it's not conclusive in that, from the viewpoint, no one can do any video. You listen to the ATC comms and it's not what the DAA say. Their issue there is they just don't have all the evidence.
Yeah, Gatwick is the same. Yeah, I know. But no, we've seen it though in Balbridge. I get where
you're coming from. We all know there are idiots out there, and the problem there has been in the past was that the enforcement wasn't there. And I know certainly in the UK, and I think even in the US, and I think generally enforcement is getting better because a lot more of you.
We have a 7-year maximum sentence here, and they still do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, I'm saying, but that said, I mean, I still don't think it's in a great volume. I mean, the DAA they did 2 people, and they were historic. So that suggests they've gone back through their logs on D-Drone and found, they've probably gone back an entire year, and in that they found 2 people. So that's the way it looks. In
the end, I at least for EU regs, I see fairness. I see an equitable access for sharing the airspace for everyone, and I see absolutely no constraints on anyone, a drone, a personal drone user, commercial, or I've never really considered, honestly, the model airplane club, but I'm guessing it's the same. It's covered the same way, but bigger, wider flight plans, of course, wider area, but I mean, the same technical approach can incorporate all of their needs. And I can't see how they're constrained by what's being put in place with U-Space. I think U-Space is just there to share the airspace and to make it safe. And I can't see anything that's constraining the model airplane clubs there.
I think, I mean, do I think, but I mean, Gary's mentioned the age. That's definitely one, because if you look, and it's quite an important one, really, when you look at history and the people. It's like, I'm trying to think now. The guy that walked on the moon, Neil Armstrong. One guy, he was flying model aircraft as a kid. That's what got him into wanting, interest in aircraft, and then obviously he goes on Air Force and so on, and ends up an astronaut. It was funny. We had the guy that's the head now of Ashore that do the testing in the US. They do the drone impact testing against aircraft and so on to put actual science into it. But he even mentioned as a kid he was flying models, and then he went on to be in the US Air Force, and now his career's progressed. So if you look at a lot of the people that are in aviation, the thing that got me interested as a kid was the models, so there's a concern there that with the age limits, you'll never be that young kid that's got that. By the time you've got the age where you're 16,
so the age limit. So like I'm not aware of the age limit, but I'm sure you're right. But I haven't seen that. I can't understand why there's an age limit.
I mean, with that, I do think with that, some of that needs to be looked at, because the concern is there. If you think about the computer boom of the 80s, if none of us could have had home computers and we'd wait till later on, and there wouldn't have been all that boom and the technology behind it. And I was also thinking as well, really, which comes back to the likes of Gatwick, is with airports, we've expanded the radius around them for drones over the years. And there's never been any consultation, because they've always had residential areas around them. So you make hundreds of thousands of people, where if they'd flown their drone a couple of years earlier to just check their own roof because it's been windy and they want to check it, where that would have been legal, and then it becomes illegal. So you're saying you're bad, you're a criminal, blah, 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 when really, actually, no, they're not. If you're getting if you're putting up a drone there, you're flying it into the airport and you're going to cause a menace, then obviously you're a criminal, you're legal. But we've kind of criminalized a whole section of people around airports, because it was all just this hysteria. And drones, when we go back to like 2015,
but isn't that the purpose, though? Isn't that the purpose of the new systems in the regulation? Because they've used these blunt instruments now, is thou shalt not, and they're pretty close to just banning drones altogether, because they haven't had a way for drones to safely integrate. So now they're stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because now they've come up with the regulations and the systems to say, okay, everyone, you want to use the airspace, here's the rules to make it safe, and no one wants the rules.
Well, to be honest, if the rules are there, it's partly about cost. So if they don't heap a load of cost on for it, which, for example, in the US, they put the registration scheme and they made it free.
Don't count the US here, because I don't see that cost.
No, but the reason I want to jump across is because they did a registration for free, and then in the UK we were charging for it, and everyone seems to come up with different rules. So the worry is, if we're then saying, well, UTM's going to charge it, it's going to be per flight, then it's going to be an issue.
I don't know. It's interesting, at the Amsterdam Drone Week last week or week before last, I was there, and it's interesting because all the commercial operators are there, UTM providers as well, and regulators, and a lot of US and some UK as well. And it was a hot topic, was how do you make money out of UTM? Who's going to pay? What's the charging? No one knew. But what I'm pretty confident of is that your average Joe Soap won't be paying anything. I can't see that being politically acceptable at all.
No, I think you're right. You're right. But you just have to, is perhaps before you come into the industry, you have to wind back to when a particular American one. That was exactly.
Correct. There was nothing before. It was just feels before do it. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Change without good communication is going to be treated as it deserves to be treated, which is with fear and reticence.
You've nailed it. You've nailed it in that. That's what's happened to a grassroots.
I'm not the regulator, lads. I'm just sharing the airspace.
No, you're not. You're not. Oh,
going back to UTM for a moment. The trouble is, it's all been all around drones. It's all stick and no carrot. It's always criminalizing making drones out to be this dangerous, scary thing, where in fact they've got smaller and smaller, lighter, safer. Really, we should have always gone for the carrot approach of saying, we have your drone with remote ID, and we'll give you this freedom and that freedom and that freedom. Saying if you are, 3.5 miles away or however long it is from an airport and you're just on that boundary, yes, we will give you permission to go up and do your roof inspection because we know you're not an issue. But until someone says, if you adopt remote ID and you do this and you do that, you'll get this in return. And there's none of this, you'll get this in return. It's do it because, and in the UK, it's do it because of Gatwick, do it because of this, do it because of all, and it's never do it because we will give you something back.
I wonder if you had excluded Gatwick from history, would the UK be in a much better place now?
Yes, because it was about to. They were about to adopt some stuff, and well, there's other things that have happened in the UK that shouldn't have happened, and they'd be in a better place with EASA. But they were going to adopt some stuff that was ahead of EASA thinking. But when Gatwick happened, the rug was pulled from underneath the chaps at the CAA. It wasn't their fault. They were about to run stuff.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering to what extent is it literally if Gatwick hadn't happened or where the UK would be now. It's interesting.
It's not just the UK actually. The weird thing with that is
it does go around the world.
And Brendan,
100%. Every regulator looked at that and panicked, thinking, better lock things down and don't want that to be us, of course. And there's a lot of collateral damage, mostly innocent people that just wanted to get on and fly their drones. And businesses like ours that, the word drone's a negative word still. But that's the way it's going to be. But I do have faith in what I've seen from Europe. I think it's an honest effort to democratize things. And I can understand, the people that were there before and all this new stuff's come in, the fear of I'm going to be excluded, I'm going to be constrained somehow, or I'm going to be charged. That's probably a bigger fear than anything. I can't see that politically being tolerable at all. And I don't think it's going to happen. But I do think that we have to answer the question of making the airspace safe for the people we fly over. It's not to protect our aircraft or to reduce our insurance costs, anything. It's you see where we're flying directly over families. And we can't have a system where 99% of the people are good behaviors, but you allow whoever the hell wants to be a miscreant and really threaten life.
But don't over-egg the problem. Look how many people general aviation kill every year just in the UK or just in South Africa or just in America. So we've got to be a little bit careful to over-egg the whole
it's a good situation. It's a good point. The numbers, you're right. The numbers are low, but still you do have a moral, even one dead child or one dead person is one too many. And, at scale, again, you have to think not about where we are now, but if we're going to be flying 1,000 flights a day in every suburb, everywhere, which I do think is going to happen, ultimately the law large numbers are going to bite us on the ass here. And we can't go into this saying we knew it was possible, we were waiting for it to happen. I think we don't have to punish people. We can create systems, rules that are not punishing anyone, that if everyone just sticks to this simple set of rules, then everyone is safe and there's not going to be a collision. And as unlikely as a collision is anyway, big blue sky, I get it, I do, but the law large numbers, ultimately there will be.
But I think that the real reality of this is there needs to be big picture thinking about equitable airspace sharing and making it safe for all users. And I can see we're reaching a point where the unmanned aviation industry is going to force change up into the system, up into, we know the glider guys, the hang glider guys are pretty safe because they really truly have got they're pretty safe. But GA and moving, look at the problems that are happening in America with the airlines there because of where they're saving money and doing stuff. I have a hunch that unmanned aviation is going to push safety up almost. It's wrong to say up, but you know.
You mean like set a good example that goes further up the chain in terms of automation? Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And say, hey, look, all right, we'll do this if you want us, because you've got to go to 10 to -6, haven't you? Or was it 10 to -8?
10 to -6.
10 to -6. So what's that? 500,000 flights, 600,000 flights or something, and one fault, something like that.
One catastrophic failure in 1 million flight hours.
1 in 1 million. Now, why isn't manned aviation at that point? So Manna gets to that point, and other wing gets to that point, other people get to that point, and you can say, well, hang on a minute, why are we sharing the skies with things? I don't know what manned aircraft are. They're 10 to the minus whatever. How's that
10 to the -9 for the big guys and -8 for the small guys.
Yeah. So it's a big picture thing, but I think you should probably pop down to the local model aircraft flying field and have a chat.
Of course, and the hang gliders and the local airstrip. I know them all.
So, and how did the local airstrip react? Because in that Morecambe Bay trial that was proposed, they went nuts when they had to go through the planning process.
You guys need to come to Ireland, because honest to God, everyone here wants this to happen. And we're figuring out, we're calling each other, we're talking to each other, we're like figuring it out.
Very cool.
We don't know the answers. Of course we don't, but we're there as an operator. IAA are there, the local hang gliding club. Like we're all sitting down and no one's pissed off yet, because we haven't curbed anyone. Cool. We're literally saying, look, let us know, where we are, let us know whatever, right? But we do see it. So we have a good setup here where everyone wants to figure out how to do it. So we're going to set the example, I hope, for everybody else on how it can work. And we just all of us see the simplicity in use-based regulations. Super elegance of it is the simplicity. And we don't see a way where anyone is constrained, except for the moron that wants to fly his drone and chase our drones around. He doesn't know what he's doing, or she. We want those guys to be somehow curbed, but we don't know how to physically curb them. And
I think
punishment
on the way out
work.
anyway. I think that we've gone over peak drone sales. We've definitely gone over peak consumer drone sales. So I think you're probably
right.
Time will do that.
Do you mind? We might actually be trying to solve something that doesn't need to be solved. You're right, but I think still, unfortunately, we can say it's going to be grand. We do that a lot in Ireland, but in this case, you have to show how, you have to show the process where all the stakeholders, I guess, because if something does go wrong, you know who to sue. But you do have to show it. And I honestly, I'm getting killed in your comments here, but I honestly can't see why anyone is going to be constrained by the regulations that are set out by the EU anyway. I can't speak for UK. I certainly can't speak for the USA, but I'm not seeing it.
I think at least there will be one positive for I think with the wider drone community from the delivery. At least you are proving that you can have regular drone flights at scale, and there are no issues where I mean, we all know how far drone technology has come and how safe it is, but I don't. That message isn't known sort of wider because of the obviously with the press these days it's all about advertising. So everything's clickbait, everything's scary. Yeah. Well, it's funny. We're all using the word drone now. We didn't even use the word drone. It was multi-copter or multi-rotor, and it was the press that used the word drone because they knew that was the drones that were firing bombs and made it sound scary. And we've
I think it's worth noting again how much volume Wing are doing in Australia. They're doing between 10 and 20,000 flights a month. This is mature and it's just working. There's really no issue. They get about 6 complaints a month out of those 10 to 20,000 flights. So it is working. Like we're doing great here. We're local. We're doing a lot of volume, but nothing like Wing are doing. We will get there. But they've done an order of magnitude more than we've done and demonstrated that there's nothing to it.
Yeah, and well, I think what's been most exciting for me about this chat is just your honesty. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know I was going to get such a hard time, guys.
Well,
you've coped with it well, to be fair. And,
no. Look, we have a responsibility. My company, we feel we have a responsibility to be open and honest and talk about this stuff. We can disagree, keep talking. I'm sure we'll figure it out. That's my job.
I've got a question at the moment. I just want to go on because it's an EU thing and we haven't addressed it, and it's something that will impact on your business model a bit. And I just want to know if it's something you've considered. But I'll get onto that in a moment. But just before I do that, I just want to say, because a lot of people that are against drone delivery are the people that don't have normal, regular deliveries done anyway. They'll have their own car. They'll go out. They'll they're used to getting a big weekly shop, and they don't understand it. Now, I'm not one of those. I'm one of those that regularly uses the internet and Amazon, and I get the Morrison's delivery. And what I've noticed as well, and this is why I think that I see drone delivery being positive, is that all the supermarkets, when you do a order online for food, they always pick the stuff that's closest to going out of date. So you're always getting food that's going to be expiring a lot quicker than if you went round and grabbed it yourself. Because I know if I go around supermarket, grab a loaf of bread, I grab it right from the back because I know where it's fresh, and they put the stuff with the expiring date right to the front. And obviously, when they're picking it to give it you as a delivery, the sods are doing the exact opposite. They're going, let's give those internet orderers the stuff that's going to go off quick, which means I can't do a weekly shop because everything's expiring in 2 to 3 days. So what I do now is I do smaller shops. So I get lots of smaller shops because everything's going to stay fresh, because it annoys me putting stuff in the bin. So even now I will pay the £3.60 delivery on, because basically you get to 40 quid, you get it free. But even then that's too big. So I'll go and I'll do a 20 quid order, pay the delivery, because I know if I go to 40 quid, I'm going to be throwing 5, 6, 7 quid in the bin. So
imagine if we get it right, you're going to pay 20 quid a month or something like that to get all the drone deliveries you could ever use. So you're going to order tiny amount of stuff, everything you need at that particular time when you need it. So that's what we want to bring. We think we can do that. We think it's economically viable.
You get a monthly fee, and then
money subscription, all the drone delivery you want, and then you just pay for the products. We'll make our money selling the products and the subscription. That's a good business. But it means that you can literally get everything, right? Not just coffee, but you can, like, we have orders already for 1 onion, a head of broccoli. We already get those orders, and they're really interesting because it shows you how easy and straightforward it becomes. It's exciting at first, but people just use it for everything. That's what we want to enable, that in affordable way.
Come to Ireland just so I can order 1 onion.
Oh, you're all invited. I don't know why you haven't come yet. In the time that it took us to have this call, you could have flown here and back.
I was over there 2 weeks ago. In fact, I was in Donegal. So
lovely spot.
Yeah.
Well, we're 15 minutes drive from Dublin Airport. You come over anytime you want. Ping me.
And it's right that if I bring my drone, I can fly anywhere around the airport, can't I? That's
you
right,
can.
isn't it?
In fact, we do regular drone deliveries. And I shouldn't joke. But look, that's a pain in the arse for everyone. We don't have to deal with that, but it's a nightmare for the NSP, the regulator, the airlines, everyone. But and it tarnishes everybody that has the word drone in their title.
And the worst thing with that, though, is again, we really don't know. Certainly, some of these have been a mistake, without a doubt. And it could be that a lot of these are genuinely more mistakes than correct. We don't know because there's so little evidence. And if they had the right drone detect system, it would have the thermal head. It would be gathering evidence. It could say, "Here's the video," and blah blah. And we don't see any of that, which is. It's really disappointing because it just seems to be the same mistakes again, and the drone industry gets blamed regardless of whether or not it should be. And because the drone industry is as keen as everyone that airports have good detect system. You deal with those people that are bad, it will stop.
It's funny, if you ask the airline industry, they're genuinely terrified. I mean, they really are. Like, pilots are worried, airlines are worried. They're all genuinely worried, whether it's rational or not. They really are coming from a point of worry.
They've just got to ring Assure. They'll tell them that they haven't got because they've done the tests.
With the drone thing, the impact, there really isn't the risk there for what consumers, the hobbyists, are flying. So that's the bit.
There's been some misinformation put out there, high quality misinformation's put out there. You're not going to undo that. The fear is there.
I know in Ireland, the head of the pilots union there has been putting out some severe bullshit, and on TV as well.
I better not comment.
No, I won't. But I can comment because I'm over here in the UK, so I will. And it really disappoints me because it's just
there's a lot of, without pointing to anyone, there's a lot of experts out there that love to give their opinions and don't know what they're talking about. We understand that, and unfortunately, it's good clickbait. This stuff makes the RT news, the 9 o'clock news. And honestly, I think our regulator and ANSP are playing a blinder here, diplomatic blinder. They're really doing a good job. Just need a bit more time for dust to settle. And I think as regulation and rules evolve, I do think that there's not going to be much to worry about. I know a lot of people are worried now about the state of things, the uncertainty. I do see, without downplaying it, I do see a straightforward path to enabling skies to be open for everyone without it being very taxing on anyone. And not going all the way, but going a long way towards stopping the morons at the same time. So I feel pretty good about it. I think so in the EU, I can't speak for the UK.
You keep rubbing it in.
I keep saying that. But I'm also, look, UK will get there too in its own way. It'll get there, and I don't think it's rocket science to solve this.
I've got to say I don't mind, because here in the UK, I've been having an absolutely fantastic laugh at Dublin Airport and the way it's acted, because it's been a play for play, but everything that went on at Gatwick, and then they've surpassed it.
Is it eclipsing Gatwick in UK news? Do you hear about it much in the UK? You don't hear about it much in Ireland. Like, it's a byline in the newspapers. No one cares.
About what? Sorry.
The Dublin airport shutdowns. Like,
we don't hear any of that here, which is bizarre as well, given the drama we saw about Gatwick.
Everyone in the UK knows about Gatwick. Everyone in the world knows about Gatwick, but
no one knows about Dublin.
6 times.
Yeah, I mean, Dublin's only really known about Dublin. I was only aware of it because I think on Twitter, I've clearly got people that are in Ireland that follow me, and I see their stuff as well. And then when I started seeing it, it was like, ooh, how's this happening now? How's this happening now? How's this happening? Because we've seen it all before. This should have, basically the moment the guy was in there first, flying his drone, if there were a drone there, half an hour later, he should have been in cuffs, because if it was DJI, it'd be giving his pilot's location anyway. And B, even if it wasn't, the RF would triangulate both the drone and the pilot. So none of this should have been going on, and that's why it's been a weekly reoccurring topic on here. Only this week it hasn't, because nothing's happened this week over what we already knew. But without going on about that, because I wanted to ask you about a point, really, because what you'd mentioned and what's true is, with a drone, obviously you can have lots of drones. You don't have to have, like with the car, they're all individual drivers, which is great for now. But and as well, actually, this ties in with the fact that I noticed on Twitter you like to talk about Chat GPT and the artificial intelligence side. But this is making a headache now for governments, and even well before this, it goes back a number of years. The EU had already got the idea that it was going to have a robot tax, i.e., so the idea would be every artificial intelligence that replaces a person, every robot that replaces a person, you would pay a tax for that. So you'd essentially pay the national insurance, PAYE, all this. as though you were employing somebody, even though you weren't. Because eventually, if people's jobs, we don't really know if people's jobs will get replaced, because they said that with the computer, and all it did instead was create lots of other different jobs. So as yet we don't know. But if the people that have got the worst case scenario, it will make loads of people redundant, they'll lose jobs, then the governments will have to find a way of making up that money. So it could be that a company like yourself that's doing drone deliveries, they'd say for each one of those drones that's doing a delivery, we're going to tax you extra as though there was a driver. Is that something you've heard about, had discussions about? Anyone's, has that been thought about?
No. So we do. If you ask people, if you survey people anonymously, right? We don't tell them we're Mana, right? We don't tell them, where we're coming from. If you ask them what are your top concerns about drones and drone delivery, they say in order of volume of concerns, they say privacy, they say noise, they say job loss, and then they say safety. So the job loss thing is interesting, right? Because they say, well, drones are going to take away delivery driver jobs. And this may be controversial, but I think that's a great thing. They're low paid, shitty jobs. They're not safe. They're abuse of our young and great people. And I don't think those jobs are good for those people. But yeah, they need a living. They need a wage, right? Well, they're in university or whatever. But if you think about what drone delivery brings, it brings jobs for sure. Because if you enable fluid and seamless commerce between local vendors and their communities, you empower them to build their businesses. You make restaurants better businesses. You turn the local bookshop can now kick Amazon's ass in Balbriggan, right? Because they now have 5-minute delivery. The hardware store, the grocery store, everyone in Balbriggan, every vendor can participate in our system and reach 35,000 customers in 3 minutes. That's obviously going to create jobs. There's no question about it. But it's going to take those delivery jobs off the road. And I think that's a really good thing. And people knock me for that, but I'm honest. I think they're shit jobs, and I'd be proud to get rid of them.
And I was kind of going a step beyond that as well, though, that they could be a penalty towards you. But I guess for what you said already, if you're down to $1 delivery anyway, even say the EU put an additional cost on there because they saw the robot as replacing some humans, you'd be able to absorb that anyway.
But I mean, they do already. Like we'd be paying, ultimately, if our revenue, let's say we're charging you 20 quid a month for a subscription, we're going to be paying VAT on that. All the products that you buy, either from us or the vendors we support, we're paying our VAT and our profit tax and that. So I think that the VAT man or the VAT woman has a system to tax us already. It'll only, I think, and rightly, if it turns out that the robots did start destroying jobs left, right, and center, of course, that would be a massive problem for society. And I think we need to deal with that. But I think we have a much closer, I don't think drones are going to ever cause that problem or even, well, some robots will, the ones that fry the chips. But, outside of that, I think the real one is to look at is AI. Like you said, ChatGPT, I'm a really interested. I'm a programmer, as you know, and I've been writing a lot of code the last few months. Even though I'm running this business, I like to write a lot of code, and it's turbocharged me. Like I'm writing code since I'm 14 years old. I'm 54 now, and I've written a lot of code, and I consider myself a good programmer. And this thing is making me invincible. It's sped me up. I can write on any stack I want, and whether it's C++, Java, or JavaScript, or TypeScript, you name it. I now can write code like I'm on a surfboard. It's phenomenal. So, but is that going to take programming jobs away? No. It's going to make programmers way more productive and way more valuable because the output is going to increase, and we'll have more apps. We'll have sexier apps. They'll be more functional. So I actually think we're going to peel off a layer of shit software, mediocre software that the world is served by, and we're going to get much better software. So like the AI is, I can see very few ways that AI, at least in the short and medium term, pose a threat to us. But I don't know the answer long term. Maybe.
I did. Sorry, I'll just jump in. I'll just briefly then I'll let you. the only thought I had in my head was if a robot tax was tried to be enforced, I think a lot of stuff, especially if you tried to do an AI, people would just move all the servers to a country that said we're not going to do that tax, and they just shift infrastructure, and it would just be. I think you kind of be finding it difficult to enforce that tax unless.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, if you look, without naming names, Amazon, right? But there's lots of companies that make a lot of profit, and they avoid tax essentially, and I don't think that's right for society. But you can't argue against those companies. They're operating within the law. It's for governments to create laws that force them to pay tax. And I applaud Amazon's CFO in figuring out how not to pay any tax by not breaking the rules. He's doing his job, right? So it's down to our elected members of parliament to tax them. Now, it's not that simple, right? Because actually the commerce that those companies create and the jobs that they create, that, it's a circular economy, right? It's really hard to figure out actually, okay, let's say if you did tax Amazon, or if you tax, for example, same argument with inheritance tax or anything like that, right? There's all sorts of arguments about certain taxes are regressive and they actually result in less contribution to the exchequer. It's not as complicated. It's not as simple, I don't think, as saying Amazon should be paying tax here, here, and here. I think they should, but I think there's second order consequences that need to be fully understood as well. What we want, I think, is to make it easy to do business for businesses, for small businesses, big businesses equally. Make it easy, and don't do what the French do and just tax everything till it dies, and punish business essentially. So I think what we're doing is relatively straightforward. I think the societal acceptance around what we're doing with drone delivery isn't there's a lot of unfounded worry, right, or worry based and not with data. But I think that the real, potential for society to disagree is, maybe we've just had too much technology. Maybe it's time to get on our bicycles and go out and get our food, or grow our own food, or there's definitely an argument that says, look, at some point technology is just taking up too much of our life. Do I think that's true? No, but I think it's a reasonable thing for people to take a breath and say, look, why can't we just get back to the way life was? A healthy, simple life that we had without robots. But is that gonna happen? No, it's not, unfortunately.
Goodness me. This is very cool. I was going to ask you, this is man a real, was I've forgotten what car trawler. Did that become a pain, and is this a passion? Is this business a passion?
Oh yeah,
you made your money. Because you're speaking with a great deal of passion about this.
You missed it. Actually, I built a video games company. I built another travel technology company, which I founded in Mexico City, called Eland. I sold that in 2003. Then I did Car Trawler in 2005 for 12 years, and I've sold 3 businesses, and they were big businesses. Car Trawler was like a $1.5 billion annual turnover business, and I built those businesses, and they were a pain in the ass. They're great businesses, and the software I'm very proud of, and the strategy, and really when I look back on it, what I loved about it was the people I worked with, the careers. Like over the time, we probably hired about 4,000 or 5,000 people, created careers for people. We had Car Trawler babies, Car Trawler marriages, Car Trawler divorces. We had it all, but I was never passionate about it. What I'm building here is I'm learning obviously all sorts of stuff. So I love that. I'm a curious mind. I'm a technology guy. I love to learn. I love to dig in, roll my sleeves up. I love working with the engineers. I really enjoy that. But what we're wanting to build here is something that could potentially move products to every single suburban house in the world every day, multiple times a day. And I think that's incredible future to be building. And yeah, that is very exciting. And it's very interesting as well. Like you can see all the dimensions, just all the stuff I'm talking about here. There's so many dimensions to this business, to this industry. And right now, anyway, we're very lucky to be one of the better known, better funded, I think, players in the space. So we have Life. We're 4 years plus 4.5 years old. We've been successful to date. Will we pull it off? Will we get it done? It's a high risk business. We may or may not. But we'll have made one hell of an impact along the way. And yeah, I'm passionate about it. I've always worked 7 days a week anyway, but this thing is 8 days a week. And when you see it, I hope you'll come to Dublin. I mean, you've all flown drones. It's pretty boring. You're used to it, right? You've seen one drone, seen them all, right? But when you come and you stand on the roof of Tesco and you see 6 drones zipping across and descending to deliver right into a busy estate and into someone's back garden, delivering a bag and coming back, and then non-stop doing that all day. At night, we just see the aviation lights. It's not just cool, it's transformative to what you'll think about drone delivery. And when you see the town, I'll just lean over, all the little green dots are happy customers. And that's not it. That's only 2 days of flight. That's 500 flights. That town is, if I really overlaid all the customers, you wouldn't see, but for green. The people love it. So it is. No, it's something to be passionate about. Yeah.
You can just tell, and I think you've rightly said. We've all flown drones. We've been all into this for years, and thankfully the technology is becoming, I won't say humdrum or day to day, but it is, and that's where I think it's reaching its point where societal acceptance is going to be easy. People know what it is. It's done. I think we are moving into a very exciting time, and it's very nice to hear your passion, your very, very obvious passion. I'm very clearly aware. What am I doing? There's 2 things that are going to happen. First, my power's going to go off in 9 minutes because I'm in South Africa where there's no power, and Ian said nothing. Tonight, and we've had Bobby here for nearly 2 hours of valuable time. So Ian, you better say something for the people. Just represent the people of Wales a second.
Well, you're from Wales, Ian. We started off in Monmouth in Wales, our first aircraft.
Yes, did you?
I am aware of that.
Yeah.
What I find very interesting, actually, there's a huge amount good here, and I think there's 2 things I was going to say. What I find very interesting is you've actually taken what has worked in the basic delivery space, so Deliveroo, all of those. You say the man on a bike, and the point you made wasn't about distance; it's about keeping it small, keeping it close, and that's exactly what that is. The man on the bike isn't the guy doing 10 miles. The man on the bike is the guy doing 2 kilometers, 4 kilometers. And I think the negativity comes from, I think we've seen so much bullshit. Those of us who've been in the industry have seen it's been so many, we're going to do this, and you're like, nah, that's not going to work. And I think we forget at times there's a lot of amazing stuff being done out there, like you, like Wing, like the others who are doing it daily. You're not talking about this. It's being done daily. And, I know Bruce has his opinions on will drone delivery work. And look, the scale thing you talked about works. It makes complete sense. Ignore capital investment. The very reality is the running cost is very calculable, very simple and straightforward once you get the hardware where it needs to be. And I do think there's a place for it. I think people forget that we always think the future is going to look one way, and it doesn't ever tend to be the way we think it's going to be, but the simplest things tend to come true. It tends to be what's simple. And as you say, it started with cars, then we've moved to, we've got the electric bikes now and the huge proliferation of them, and I think actually what's probably helping you guys, crazily enough, is the electric scooter laws. As strange as it is, they've held back some parts of the delivery stuff because, electric scooters have benefits over electric bikes as well. And I think that's actually helped the drone industry. But yeah, I think it's incredible what you're doing. I've been listening in awe, to be honest. I've been quiet because I'm seeing, and I'm going to come over. I'm in Ireland in a couple of months, so I'm going to come over and have a look. But I think
you know how to find me.
I think there's a big difference in this industry. We see a lot of talk, but we've got to remember there are very clever people doing stuff on a daily basis, and you guys are one of them.
Yeah.
And I would just add, when you come to the UK, I do expect to be delivered a burger, and I've got.
Where are you living? You'll have to prioritize that.
I'm over in Bradford, so it could be a burger or it could be a curry. But either way, it's just so that I can show Bruce this there in my hand, and also Daryl Mills on Twitter.
Bruce is the king of the opposition party, is he? Is that who I have to defeat here? Is it?
Yeah. So
you won't win.
You won't win.
Is he on Twitter? Is he on Twitter? Is he? Because I'll
Extra.
He's got how many subscribers has he got now? Because you've got to get his fan. But
I've only just gone back onto Twitter. I left when the Musk period for a bit when it all got a bit silly. But I have
Twitter. I'm addicted to Twitter. I hope everyone's listening, especially the ones that hate me. Follow me in Twitter, and I'm going to kick all your asses if you disagree. And the cheek of Drone and Sundry from SUAS News saying Bruce had to go, that his wife was unwell, but he did give Bobby a kicking.
Yeah,
not the way I'm calling this. By the way,
no, I wouldn't agree.
I think he chickened off early because I was starting to get the upper hand.
Yeah, I agree 100% on
that. I think even Bruce, if he was asked, would agree that I think Bobby answered all his questions and.
He didn't like the answer. He doesn't agree, but I'll get him on Twitter and we'll have a good debate. It'll be fun. And look, we got to talk.
You need to get out more, Bobby.
I know. It's a sickness. But like everyone who's listening to this, because it's busy enough there. There's some fun people there. Come get me and have a go at me on Twitter, and let's. I'll answer all your questions there. It's much more fun. You're all
incredibly insightful. It's been amazing just to hear. And as you say, and the interesting thing is that you're starting to see the real players show now. You're starting to see the real, we're seeing all of the VP, the venture capitalist nonsense, all of that, this big spill money that entered Silicon Valley. And actually the problem is a lot of that ended over there and not here, but we got caught up in it. If you look at, you got you guys, we got Altitude Angel. We've got some amazing drone businesses in the UK that are making this work every day, doing industry leading stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we're Europe, all over Europe, actually, there's some real quality there. There's been, you're right, a lot of bullshit. That, by the way, is going to recover. The bullshit will increase as we start to get successful, I think, in Europe. Yeah. And
you get a second wave of it as people then think, we're going to try and sell what they're doing.
Right? But at least it'll be real then, because the market will be open and it will be a case of going forward because the physics work, economics work.
But I think the interesting bit till now, there's been they've got away for so long without the expectation because there's been no one really doing it. So it's like, we're going to give you X amount of money, and then 4 years later, nothing's happened and no one's really surprised.
The funny thing is, Ian, I've only ever run profitable businesses. This is the first business I've ever run that needs capital first to get it going, because I've written all the code myself for the previous businesses, built the product with my own hands.
You haven't really had hardware. Okay, you might have servers and all that stuff.
Like exactly. With software, you just small team, you build the product in 6 months, you're making money straight away. Hardware just takes money, but doesn't take $1 billion. I mean, without naming names, some drone companies have spent billions. And like, I can see how the big companies can't do what small companies do. Never can they do that. It's impossible.
It's surprising what a toilet seat costs, Bobby, in the restroom and the daily sandwiches intake. And you know how that works, and I know I've seen it myself. But I do think it's interesting you say there'll be a second wave but the expectation is that wave's not going to last long, because what you'll get is, well, they're doing it. How long is it going to take you to get to thee? And when they don't do that, then you're going to see that fall over very quickly.
There was already a second wave of renderings came into my inbox after Zipline announced their winching down service. Loads of people saying, and look at our new delivery drone. You wouldn't be me doing it, would you?
Yeah, look, delivery drone should be simple device, not the sexiest thing, not the highest performing thing. It should just be safe and that's it, and reliable, easy to maintain. That's it. A bus, Ford Escort, if you will. That's what we have.
There we are. I think that's perfect. As the minute rounds off, to say that Manor Drones are the Ford Escort.
I enjoyed you grumpy old men tonight. This was fun. And I enjoyed your audience. Thank you very much. I enjoyed you. Thanks very much. I appreciate everybody staying and having a few pot shots at me. This was fun. I liked it.
Well, and we must do it in a pub in Dublin.
Let's do it again sometime. In a year when we've taken over the world.
Okay. I like that. Fair play. Look after yourselves. Thanks very much. You've been very
Likewise,
kind. If you are wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves. We'll see you again 2100 GMT next week. Bye bye. For now, cheers all. There's one click and